Hey everyone, sorry for that little technical difficulty. We got the screen going and we're good to go now. So welcome. I'm Zach Jones from Vertical Measures and I'm your host for another installment of VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Embracing Digital Marketing, How a Digital Expert Can Help Align Your Teams, and will be presented by our Director of Coaching and Training, Drew Eastmead. Drew leads Vertical Measures training and education efforts, including our coaching service. He has 14 years of experience managing several large-scale websites. Today, he coaches clients around the country through their online marketing efforts so they can meet their business goals. Drew's expertise includes digital strategy, content, SEO, and user experience. Before we get started, though, and I hand over the presentation, I'm just going to go through a few things. Today's webinar, both the slides and the recording, will be available tomorrow. We'll also be sending out an email to all of the registrants. That includes you. If you'd like to view any of our previous webinars, they are available at verticalmeasures.com/webinars. If you have any questions at any point during the webinar, use your question/chat tab on your webinar interface or tweet at us with the hashtag VMWebinar. We'll try to get to all your questions at the end during the Q&A. And finally, if you're looking to attend a conference in 2018, check out our post about the top 120 digital marketing conferences in 2018. You can find it at vert.ms/2018 conferences. And just a side note, if you're in Arizona and you're attending the Digital Summit Phoenix tomorrow, we'll be there. A lot of us will be there. So if you have any questions, reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. So that's all for me right now. I'm going to hand it off to Drew. Take it away, Drew.
Thanks, Zach. I'm very excited about today's webinar. We started our coaching and training program almost 3 years ago here at Vertical Measures. And I wanted to walk you guys through some of the more common things that we see when we're working with organizations. So hence the title, How a Digital Expert Can Help Align Your Teams. Again, my name is Drew. I've been doing this for about 13 years. On average, our coaching clients almost double their organic website traffic in the first year. And Vertical Measures, like Zach said, we're in Phoenix and we've been around for a little over 10 years, actually almost 12 years now. So I wanted to talk first about why companies tend to get lost when it comes to digital marketing. They may have tried a few things here and there, but they're just not really sure what approach is right, and or they've become frustrated with the direction of their online marketing efforts. So obviously we have many different scenarios where that could be, but lack of result is usually number one. At your organization, you've tried doing some online marketing efforts, you've tried upgrading your website, but the results just aren't either paying for themselves or they're not paying off. Lack of resources is another reason that companies get frankly frustrated, or that also leads to a lack of results. We often find that the digital marketing world is so complex and the bar is set so high for companies to achieve what they want online that a lot of companies are often understaffed when it comes to online marketing. So we'll talk about a few of the different facets of online marketing and specifically where companies can be understaffed, but lack of resources definitely leads to a lot of frustration and lack of results again. And then lastly, lack of alignment as the third sort of big picture reason I think that companies kind of get lost with digital. Sometimes companies have too many resources and they're all trying to compete for the same, the getting placement on the website for their content from their department. Or you have people that are in different parts of the company that are all saying, part of our job is to do online marketing, but nobody really owns it. So there's no overall alignment within the company. So we see those second two bullet points there, lack of resources and lack of alignment, just really across the board, whether it's large companies, small companies, and across every industry. So these are the three, I think, big picture reasons why a lot of companies struggle with digital and they're just not sure what to do next. And then when we get a little more in the weeds, these are my 5 reasons why I think companies generally fail or they're not making adequate progress online. And I'm going to dive into all of these as we go through these slides over the next 30 minutes or so. But overall, no strategy, not measuring online efforts, not writing for your audience, so not knowing either who you're talking to, or maybe you're in the boat where you're actually really writing for your executives, and not your audience. Not optimizing your content. I'm going to talk about a few different ways that can actually happen, not only for the search engines, but for your audience, and also knowing really just algorithm changes and making sure that you're providing not only the search engines a good experience when they come across your content, but also the user experience, kind of the interface of your website. That can definitely lead to a lot of failures within digital. And then finally, kind of to button everything up, is simply just not executing whatever plan it is that you come up with in digital. So that'll kind of wrap everything up together at the end, and then we will have a Q&A after I go through the slides. So let's talk about those 5 reasons a little bit more in depth. And this is, again, those 5 reasons are what I have found in coaching and consulting with clients the last 3 years. Typically, these 5 reasons will lead to the bulk of our conversations. When we start coaching a client, strategy almost always comes first. We want to know, has the organization been working on a strategy? Are they trying to execute a strategy, or have they never had one before? Depending on the size and complexity of the organization, strategy, I would say, has varying degrees of importance. And when I talk about strategy, I'm specifically referring to digital marketing strategy or a digital strategy. And I often see that a lot of companies that we work with, they frankly just don't have a strategy, whether it's documented or not, or they're not following it. They basically have no real strategy when it comes to online. So that makes me think of Han Solo, kind of the reckless cowboy that's going to, reckless space cowboy that's going to fly, into the Death Star or whatever he's going to do. He doesn't really overthink it, just kind of does it. Fairly reactive. So that can be exciting, but it doesn't always lead to very positive results. Then on the other hand, I've seen companies that either do overthink it or they think they need to overthink it. And that is why we have C-3PO there on the right. Overly analytical, always trying to poo-poo, some idea with numbers and data. And I think somewhere in the middle is where you want to be. If you spend way too much time putting together a strategy, you could easily lose 3, 4, 5, 6 months where you could have been executing and actually learning. That's one of my big takeaways, is that starting your digital marketing strategy today is, the second best time to do it. It's the best time would have been 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So getting started is where, that's really all you can do, as far as if you want to be able to measure and learn from your efforts. Getting started sooner is better than later. So again, that's why I kind of recommend, you want a strategy, you want to have a documented strategy that you can share with your teams, that everybody is on board with and understands, why we're doing, whether it's email marketing, or we're going to upgrade this section of our website, or we're going to go, full on with a LinkedIn campaign. Whatever your strategy is, it's absolutely critical that you document it and you share it with all the critical teams and the stakeholders. But I'm not generally a proponent of doing like a 3 to 6 month strategy exercise, again, because you can learn lessons just by doing the work and then measuring it and then pivoting from there. When we work with clients, typically we will go through, like I said, a strategy exercise early on. And usually we'll put together a strategy that consists of probably all 8 of these elements, or at least most of them. And again, this is sort of our cheat sheet to get you to where you need to be with strategy, in our view. If you do far more than this, I would argue that you might be overdoing it. So we like to document, number 1, the business goals, 2 to 3 things that you absolutely want to accomplish, that we can trace your digital efforts back to. We always want to think about the business goals. Resources, making sure that, in order to meet those goals, we have X, Y, and Z resources in-house, and or ABC resources externally that we've hired or we're going to need to hire. Remember, I talked about lack of resources being a real pain point. So if you don't have the resources in-house, then we kind of work with those clients to figure out where it makes sense to quote unquote outsource. 3 is your audience. So part of the strategy is where we really define who we're trying to reach. I think this is probably more than anything the most difficult and the most important part of the strategy, because if you're doing all of these efforts and you're targeting the wrong people, then those efforts are not going to be fruitful. Number 4 is competitors. So when we're putting this strategy together and we're coaching a client through, putting a successful strategy together, we will ask the organization that we're working with, who do you view as your competitors? Okay, and then we'll kind of dissect that. But then we also take a look at who are you competing with online. So even though business X might not be a competitor that you perceive, you actually are competing with them online for eyeballs. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, or we can get to it in the Q&A. And then the second row is more of the execution part of the strategy. So content, what are we going to write about? What do we have expertise in that makes us unique from our competitors? Publication, where are we going to publish and when are we going to publish? We're obviously going to use our website to add content, to add information that our audiences are going to find useful. But then we also need to figure out where does that make sense to do it on the web outside of our website? Promotion, how are we going to drive eyeballs and traffic to whatever it is that we're publishing online? Are we going to do organic outreach? Are we going to do paid advertising online? How do we lift up the efforts that we're doing? And then lastly, measurement, which really kind of ties back to number 1. Do we have Google Analytics in place? Is it set up correctly? Are we using that data that we have available to us to actually make decisions? I think that's the biggest thing. Kind of like strategy, I'm not a big proponent of overdoing strategy. I'm also not a proponent of overdoing measurement. If you're not looking at data and numbers that are actually informing some kind of action, then I think you're looking at the wrong numbers. So that's a good segue into our second section. Not measuring. So we just talked about, not necessarily measuring the right numbers, but I've definitely worked with clients that really don't measure at all. And obviously, we've got Back to the Future on here because you can imagine all the things that Doc Brown was freaking out about. If the calculations were wrong, they could end up in the wrong year. We always want to pay attention to the numbers, make sure that we're using them to our advantage. I actually came across 2 clients just in the past 2 weeks that have not set up what we call goals in Google Analytics. Most clients we work with do use Google Analytics. Certainly not all, but it is a free tool. Hopefully you guys have it set up for your website. But in addition to the data that Analytics is just automatically collecting, it's telling you who's coming to your website, what pages they're visiting, what pages they're not visiting, what are they using a tablet, a laptop, a mobile device, etc. All kinds of information that's just automatically being collected by Google Analytics. But one of the best things about Analytics is that you can customize it to the goals that matter to your business. So if you want to measure how many people are signing up for an email newsletter, or arriving on a certain page, or staying a certain amount of time on the website, you can set all kinds of goals like that in this conversion section that you see in the screenshot there. And we always are encouraging and coaching our clients, if we're going to be able to prove an ROI for all of these digital efforts, this is one of the easiest ways and most customizable ways that we can do that. All right, next one is not writing for your audience. So if you remember in the Christmas story, the father of the family gets the box which ultimately is holding the gaudy lamp, and he thinks the box says fragile rather than fragile. So we always want to keep our audience in mind, think about, what are they wanting to read? What do they see themselves as? He was kind of thinking himself as this like suave Italian guy. Where do our audience, where do they want to go? What do they want to become? How do we as digital marketers can help them get there? What kind of pain points can we answer? I mentioned this earlier, but we definitely come across a lot of clients here at Vertical Measures where the companies that we're working with and coaching are really mired in this cycle of writing for their executives. And it's something we really have to work on, usually through some sort of education process, to wean them off of that. And it really is just absolutely critical. I can't tell you how many clients we've worked with who just sort of use like inside baseball terms, jargon in their industry that the people that you're trying to reach online just don't understand those terms. So we need to, do work to figure out who we're trying to reach. And I think most companies generally know that, but we like to coach our clients again and kind of taking that to the next level, especially when you're thinking about how audiences are how they're behaving online. So we always want to make sure that we're writing and producing content, adding valuable information to our websites that specifically talk to niche audiences. We don't want to try to be all things to all people. Again, we certainly don't want to have the problem where you're a marketing manager, marketing director at your company, and you're feeling like all the information that we're publishing online is really for our executives. It's not for our audience. So that's not where we want to go. One of the big picture things that we like to work on with clients is sort of the adage of you want to have content for the right person at the right place at the right time. And that probably sounds cliched, and I would agree with that. However, if you think about it, when we're talking about digital marketing, we are trying to reach, an individual person, really, and we don't really have all the tools or know-how to understand where or when your potential customers are finding you online. So they may be starting their research process, they may be near the end of their research process. Wherever they are, we want to have content and information online to answer those questions. So what that ends up looking like, to kind of oversimplify it, is some sort of chart like this where you map out, these are the 3 personas or target audiences that we want to reach. Okay, now let's do a content audit. Do we have presentations and slideshows and videos and case studies, let's say for our persona number 1, at all points of their potential decision process? As you think about their online journey, have we produced content that speaks specifically to them at their specific points? And then likewise, we just keep repeating the exercise, right, for the different target audiences. And what we often find is that there are gaps, hence the red circle, like no smoking signs, right? So there we realize that, okay, we need to produce content, whether it's an article or a case study, a video, a blog post, an email newsletter, maybe it's some combination of all of those. We need to make sure that we're producing content and adding information online that will help those personas. So this is, again, a simplified map, but this is one of the ultimate goals that we really want to get to when we're coaching clients on how to produce content, how and why. Also, not writing for your audience. So I mentioned the, not writing for your executives, but you want to write for your audience. Setting up some kind of editorial board. This is just a sample of a map that we kind of worked on with a client. And we set up a content council where we set up really a whole content governance kind of workflow of who needed to have input at what time and who was able to make approvals and make decisions and who was guiding the overall editorial process. So we work with clients to set up systems like this. We call it content governance. And we try to streamline it as much as possible, but sometimes when it's a really large organization, it's necessary to set up some kind of matrix like this. Having department champions, you see those on the left, having a lot of voices be participatory in your content efforts, your online marketing efforts is really key. If you just have, a siloed marketing team or just any kind of siloed team that's running with this without getting input from across the organization, you're probably missing opportunities. So again, we like to think of all departments kind of contributing at least in some way toward online marketing efforts. We need, writers, we need editors, we need people to be able to promote the content and publish it on the web. And then sometimes we need legal review. So this is another just aspect that we work with clients on when we're coaching them is setting up sort of the approval process of what does it take to get the stuff and the information that we want to share with the world. How do we get it online, and how do we do it in a reasonably fast way? Content not being optimized. This is the third reason why I think companies fail, with their digital efforts. So Game of Thrones, if you think about all of the characters that have come and gone, I'll try not to have any spoilers here, but we know that, all of these different families in this world are all trying to get to the Iron Throne, and it's a pretty bloody battle to the throne, and we like to compare that to this sort of battle and competition to get onto Google page one, because we know that's where the eyeballs are, that's where the clicks go. You need to be aware of what your competitors are doing. If they're appearing on page one, why are they? If you're not, why are you not? And vice versa. So understanding that, it's all a race to get those eyeballs, and do we have information, again, kind of at the right time for the right people? So optimizing content, I think, comes in a few different forms. We often think about SEO, search engine optimization, but I'm going to talk through a few different facets of how I think optimizing content is important. So a study was done recently that showed that the average searcher spends less than 7 seconds before they decide on which result they're going to click on in Google. So when we're working with clients and coaching them on coming up with new information and new content that they're going to put online, more than likely on their website, we really spend a lot of time coaching them on how to come up with headlines that are going to resonate with searchers. Largely because of this stat. There's a few seconds that you have to try to convince people that you are the best result within Google or Yahoo or Bing. And there needs to be a lot of thought and care and strategy behind what you're going to present on those search engines, because we know that usually it's at least 50% of your traffic is coming from search engines, at least. So again, knowing that the average searcher is spending less than 7 seconds, we've got to be able to figure out a way to capture their attention really quickly. There's obviously a slew of SEO tactics that I'm not going to get into detail today, but we wanted to show this slide because we were doing work with a client over the past 12 months. This is from, I believe, 2017 data, where the client was doing digital marketing on their own to a degree, but they also hired Vertical Measures for us to help supplement their efforts. And we have a lot of relationships like that where it's, we're combining efforts and combining expertise. And we like that. But this shows the content production that was done by this organization versus the content that Vertical Measures produced. Now, we're producing it for the same website. We're publishing it in the same area of the website. The client produced 75 articles over the course of 2017. For all that effort, you can imagine how many hundreds of hours that must have been, even if it was just 3 hours per blog post. They got a little over 1,000 visitors for those who reached those 75 articles that they published on their website. Vertical Measures produced 11 blog posts compared to 75, and we basically got the same amount of total traffic to the articles that we wrote. So we, like I said, we coach clients on how to optimize their content, and it's just absolutely critical. I mean, you can see the hundreds of man hours that were probably wasted here by producing and creating content that wasn't optimized for Google. So it's important that you have a process that you understand and that your teams can understand, so that when you're going through this this effort to produce content, that it's going to be meaningful, right? You don't want to spend hundreds of hours and not get the results. So we have a process that we coach and train clients on that frankly, it works in any industry. So we have a lot of confidence in our ability to train clients on how to optimize their content. Another good thing I will say is of having a coach or a digital expert to help align your teams is we are always kind of on the cutting edge of what's going on with algorithm updates. Even this morning, actually, we just noticed something. Our SEO team noticed that Google is doing some testing on what they're displaying on page 1. So we were noticing that there's that people also search for module that you often see in Google. They're now testing that kind of throughout the page, not necessarily just on the top or the bottom, but within specific results that you're clicking on. So it's good to have someone kind of in your corner that can alert you to opportunities like that. Like I said, we just uncovered a new one this morning. So we're kind of working through that, and we're going to coach our clients on how we think they can take advantage of it. We also know things like Google is going to a mobile first index this year in 2018. That's going to be a major influencer of traffic, and eyeballs. HTTPS also just kind of went through Google Chrome in that browser. If you don't have a secure website, they're now popping up a warning message when you visit sites that aren't secure, which you can certainly imagine is going to lead a lot of people to abandon those sites. So that's important. And then Facebook, I believe it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, again announced that their algorithm is going to make it even harder for brands to have their content appear in people's news feeds. So, just in the nature of working in digital, there's always changes happening. I think they're usually for the better for the end user, so that's good. But again, having a coach or an expert kind of in your corner can help you. We will keep you abreast of those changes and make recommendations so that you're not, 6 months or a year behind. And then this is still one of my favorite examples. I've been using it for almost a year and a half at this point, but I just love it. My wife works at a pretty large company, and this is just a screenshot of her inbox and a webinar that her company was putting on for its employees. So it was an internal webinar. Like I said, she works at a large company, so they were trying to help their employees really just kind of be more efficient in their day and managing, all the different balls that they're juggling. So they decided to create this webinar. And the point of this slide is to show you that even if you create great content and you optimize it for the search engines, if you still have a crummy user experience, then that content is not going to perform for you. So let's look and see how they handled this webinar that they wanted to promote to their employees. So they asked, I'm going to back up, sorry. So they said, here's why we're having this webinar. We want you to be able to create more focus and be able to manage, all the different balls that you're trying to juggle. And how can we help you eliminate distraction? So we've got this webinar, register today. And then I'm just going to pause there for a second and let you read those next 2 paragraphs. Now, can you imagine anybody who actually went to that webinar? And of course, the irony of this whole thing is that the webinar was entitled Information Overload. So some rich irony there. I just love this example again because it shows that, even if you create content and maybe the webinar was wonderful, but I'd be shocked if there were more than 5 people that went through that very difficult process. So I always like to kind of put the user hat on, and I coach my clients to do that as well. Literally go through your website, your social media channels, whatever it is that you're hoping that your audience is going to do. Walk through those processes and see if you're asking people either to do too much, or you're confusing them, or you're just making it a pain to do business with you. People can hit the back button really easy and go to your competitors. So we do some user experience type stuff like this exercise when we're coaching clients. And I think all of those kind of go to, optimizing content, optimizing your website, making sure, again, that you're providing a good user experience and a good experience for Google. You have to do both. So the last reason that I think companies fail at digital, and why a digital expert can really help kind of jumpstart things, is quite simply just not executing. We've had some clients who really struggle, whether they were working with us for the last 6 to 12 months or they weren't. We see all the time examples of clients who just can't get the ball moving, or they can't do it consistently enough. And one of the things that we really preach here is that consistency is absolutely key with digital marketing. It's not a campaign that you can do for 3 or 6 months. It's something that you have to stick with. And it's really kind of a culture change for a lot of companies. So we've got office space, right? What would you say you do here? And sometimes we have to ask those really tough questions with organizations that we're working with, because we actually know that they're doing the work. But for whatever reason, the work is not ending up in the right hands, or it's getting bottlenecked, and the results just aren't going live on the website. So we see that all the time. We're creating content, we're creating plans to add new sections to websites, and they just sit there for 3, 6, 9 months. So we have to figure out a way to get past that, and that's another way that the coaching, I think, helps, is that often within an organization, there will be a digital marketing expert or 2 or 3. And as much as they're trying to push things through, sometimes it helps to have an external voice come in and actually kind of say the same thing, but because it's an agency, or it's just someone external outside the company, because they are saying it, they can be viewed as the expert, and it can actually help push things along. I know that's frustrating, but I've definitely found that to be the case with people I've worked with. We and myself and the digital marketers or the other coaches that we have very similar ideas, and just sometimes when we pitch it to their executives, then it clicks. This is an example of 2 coaching clients that we worked with. You can see the data goes all the way back for 2 years, so all of 2016 and basically all of 2017. And one of the clients more or less followed our recommendations of improving their website, optimizing it, writing a lot of content, publishing that content, promoting that content. You can see that clearly the client in the blue is implementing and executing the strategy that we came up with. Now, it took a little while. We worked on a lot of foundational issues in 2016, and we didn't make the speedy progress that we would have liked. But last year was a very good year for that client. Client B really just hasn't kept up with the plan. We've put together a strategy. We worked on it together, but that execution part is just missing on their end. So you can see their results are flat. Now, this chart, just to tell you a little bit more, is organic traffic. So website traffic that's coming from a search engine, whether it's Google, Yahoo, or Bing. And it's people that are finding their content and clicking on those results in Google, which leads to more traffic, which inevitably, drives more leads. So we've got one client that's executing and one that is falling short on the execution side. We see this a lot. It's a really, really common theme for all of our clients, I would say. So that kind of wraps up the content that I've got. We're going to go to Q&A in a minute. These are some of my favorite resources. CMI, Contently, and NewsCred are all kind of large umbrella websites that talk about all things content marketing. They always have great stuff. I really like NewsCred a lot. I think they put out some really great content about digital marketing. HubSpot, I'm guessing most of you guys know them. They also have fantastic content. They have a lot of good case studies. They really focus on data. They've got a great blog that you can check out. That all of these are really just going to go into a lot more detail than I did today. Moz is a little more technical. They focus a lot on search engine optimization. They've got a great blog. If you're looking at actually just writing, learning how to write for online, that SEOcopywriting.com is a nice site, much smaller in scale, but I think she does a great job. Social Media Examiner is what you would expect. And then Vertical Measures, that's us, and Orbit Media. We're two agencies that I think we have two of the best blogs out there about content marketing, SEO, digital marketing, all that good stuff. So these are some of the sites that I read probably on a weekly basis. I'm going to at least two or three of these. So good stuff there. What we do for our clients, we kind of do really everything digital marketing. We put together online marketing strategies. We create content like we talked about for clients. Other times we do the coaching, and it's kind of a combined effort. We also do pay-per-click management, so online advertising, and then we do technical search engine optimization, SEO. Some of the reasons why we really love coaching, like I said, we started the coaching division about 3 years ago. We're really passionate about what we do. So we have coaches on our team that have been doing this a long time. We love working with clients kind of hand in hand and being that consultant and really helping them move the ball along. Like I said, with that one slide when we were showing the Vertical Measures created content versus the client's created content, we have a methodology and a process that we coach and train clients on. Really works in any industry. And then, as I also kind of alluded to, we just love collaborating. We think that there's a lot to be said about when clients bring their expertise to the table. So if you're in the automotive industry or finance or healthcare or whatever, you have really great expertise that we want to leverage and get information and content out there to the world, and we'll help you do that. And then we kind of bring to the table our expertise with SEO, link development, all of the kind of technical things that can help lift up your content and your ideas. So we love the coaching because it's really collaborative, and we've found some really good results there. All right, let's move over to the Q&A. I think we've got a lot of questions already coming in, so I'm going to turn it back over to Zach.
Hey, Drew, thanks for that. That was really great. It's fun watching the client or the coaching business grow at VM. I think it's done a really great job. Before we get into the Q&A, just a reminder, we will be sending out the recording and the slides tomorrow morning. Be on the lookout in your email. And you could also, like I said, verticalmeasures.com/webinars. It'll be up there tomorrow as well. All right, so first question is from Colette. What are the best digital initiatives to begin with a company just wading in?
Yeah, so companies that are just kind of new to digital marketing, we often look at digital initiatives as kind of like a pyramid or like a cake that you're building. And the foundation for most, I would say, is SEO. If you don't have a sound technical SEO baseline of your website, then everything that you build on top of that is just going to sink. So we kind of compare it to like a house built on sand. So SEO, I would say, is usually one of the baseline things that we want to make sure that we get right. And then once we have that, we can kind of build on it, right? We can then add more content, start to, promote our email newsletter. We can start gating content. We can improve the website so that Google's actually going to find it. So SEO, I would say, is absolutely one of the critical early on things that I would make sure you have right. And then beyond that, one of the things that we just really push a lot is content. We've seen it for years now that Google rewards websites that are constantly improving, and usually that's through adding information and adding content. The content should be informative and educational. It shouldn't all be very salesy. And we've just seen that trend really across industries. So SEO, content, and then you can kind of get to some of the more sophisticated things like link development, social media, email. But I really believe that content is kind of the center of the universe with most companies' online efforts.
Okay, we're going to jump into the second one now from Ashley, and what is the best way to implement content marketing when you have a one-person marketing team? So this would kind of dive back into the whole content and SEO, but it's tough with one person. So
Right. Yeah, we've worked with a lot of different businesses that have, one or two person marketing teams, and usually it's too much for one person. So I would recommend some sort of, collaboration with freelancers. Maybe it's an agency, maybe it's not. Um, there are so many resources out there to help you do digital marketing, whether it's like those freelance boards. You can find freelance writers, freelance designers, coders, IT people that can help with the website. Leverage those experts. I think there's a lot that you can do as far as if you want to partner with somebody who's local or not local. There's tons and tons of options out there. The other thing I would say, if let's say you don't have a budget really for anything, no freelance, no outside help whatsoever. If that's not an option, I think it goes back to strategy. I think you have to document, these are the three absolute most important things that we need to, you're one person, I need to achieve, and I've got to cut out some other things. You just have to pick and choose, and sometimes you have to say no to stuff. So if you're swamped for time, think big picture and try to tie your, the efforts that you do day in and day out back to those 2 or 3 big picture goals. And then you can start hopefully whittling away at, all the things you want to do. But hopefully you have a little budget where you can, work with some outside freelancers or agencies that can help, take some of that load off your shoulders. It can take a lot of time to learn all the different nuances of all the different digital strategies out there. So hiring someone else, if nothing else, it will save you the time investment of having to learn, social, email, SEO, paid, all the different facets.
Yeah, VM started out with our owner every night writing content. That was like the way he just kind of built the company up from the ground up. So, it's writing content's obviously the easiest thing for people to do over and over and over again. Okay, so the third question would be, it's from Camilla. What is the most important priority in creating a successful digital marketing strategy? I guess we've kind of dove into that a little, but.
Yeah, most important priorities in creating it. Yeah, so I'll kind of reiterate. I think any digital marketing strategy, for it to be successful, I think a couple things. Kind of like I said earlier, I would absolutely work on this to death. The idea that we need to identify 3 to 5 things that matter, that really, really matter, not just to you, but to the whole business, to the executives. These are the things that we want digital, to be accountable for or to achieve, whatever. And focus on those things and then start to branch out. I think also you've got to be fairly sophisticated at this point. It's not enough just to have, a few landing pages and a substandard website and hope people find us. We've got, as part of the strategy, I think you need, like I said, building up from SEO, having a plan there, having a plan for content, having a plan to promote the content. You can't just publish it on your website and hope for the best. So I think the bar is fairly high at this point. You need to be able to be pretty sophisticated and have a plan for all of those different facets. I know that's kind of a complicated answer, but I think, again, I think the bar is pretty high at this point, whether it's you're talking about the expectations of users when they go online to be able to find exactly what they want, exactly when they want it, and the expectations of Google too. It's not easy to rank on page 1 anymore. You've really got to put in hard work to produce really good content.
Okay, Drew, we're just going to do one last one. And since we've talked about the importance of measurement, but not to overthink the data, if you were to pick a single metric to monitor growth, which would it be? Sorry about that.
Yeah, a single one. I'll give the kind of annoying answer that it depends, but it depends on your goals. But I think one of the things that we're really focusing here on Vertical Measures is this idea of growing your audience. So, and the thinking behind that is, you're spending hundreds of hours, a month or a year working on digital, and in order for you to be able to leverage that and show growth, you need to be able to form a relationship with these people and talk to them and send them information. People are not going to go to Google, every few days and find you and click on your website. So you need some other way to be able to reach these people. And like I mentioned with Facebook and a lot of the social channels, it's pretty difficult to get in front of customers on social. So what I'm getting at is this idea of growing some sort of follower or email subscriber or podcast listeners, some kind of audience that you can grow. Our CEO always talks about, the money's in the list. And we think that's still true. So what I would, if I had to be forced to pick one metric, I think it's, traffic isn't always quality traffic. So that, that's out. But people who are willing to give you their contact information, and not necessarily a lead, because I think that's too obvious, but this idea of growing your audience through like an email list or some kind of follower list where you can continue to personalize that relationship, send them valuable information, get more and more data from these potential customers. I think that's what I would probably measure. So something akin to like an email newsletter database. How are we driving people on our website and all of our efforts toward trying to collect that initial contact information?
All right, good answer, Drew. That's all the time we have, though. So a big thanks goes to all of you for joining this webinar. We hope you come back and attend next month's webinar with our Senior Director of SEO Services, Jim Bader. We will have registration open for that soon, and just be on the lookout for an email or check our social, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter to stay in the know. Just a heads up, we're trying something new. When you exit out of this webinar, you should be prompted with a quick exit survey with 3 questions. We'd really appreciate your input. So it won't take more than a minute. And so again, I'm Zach, and from all of us at Vertical Measures, thank you for attending and have a great day. Thanks, Drew.